the discussions and the debates that we've had regarding this football team, including here on this program, I've talked about everybody all the way to the top. Art Rooney, obviously a ton on Mike Tomlin, Terrell Austin. You know who I haven't brought up, like hardly at all? I'm going to change that today. It's Arthur Smith. There's a reason for it. Good morning to you. Good Thursday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Steelers. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into hockey and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Penguins and Pirates that I hope you'll check out. There's an easy case to be made for the improvement that was shown in the offense between Matt Canada running it and Smith running it. Easy, like as in the Steelers offense ranked 28th in scoring in the 2023 season, and that leaped all the way up to number 16 this past season. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to get into the statistics. I happen to believe in Smith. I have faith in him in a lot of fronts, including as a person. And when I say that, I'm not just referring to his dealings with me. I'm referring to his dealings that get relayed to me by players and others who interact with him. This is a good guy, and if you're not familiar with his backstory, he comes from a very, very, very wealthy family, and he never needed to be doing anything as annoying as coaching in the National Football League. I respect that. But it also comes with a pretty significant football component. I feel, and hear me out on this, okay, because I know the reflexive reaction at season's end was everybody stinks, everybody's the worst, everybody's got to go. But Smith isn't your standard Steelers coordinator or coach. He did come from the outside. He did come directly from 3 years as an NFL head coach in Atlanta. And he did come here with a concept that was not only endorsed on the inside, but to the best of my ability to gauge such stuff, was pretty much embraced by everyone on the outside as well. I know there was some hesitancy among some. Anytime they hear running, they think Franco and Rocky and Franco and Rocky and Franco and Rocky. And that's never been the Smith way. When Smith had the peak version of Derrick Henry in Nashville, he also had really created the peak version of Ryan Tannehill, and he brought out the peak version of A.J. Brown. It was never just run the ball. And that was never going to be the intent here either, as much as that would get misconstrued by some. And a lot of that was in play. A lot of that was actually in motion through the early parts of the season. The thing that was missing, and I would really challenge anybody hard to dispute me on this, was that the Steelers weren't punching it in. That was it. They were moving the football. They were moving it against anybody they faced, in any scenario they faced. And I'm talking about mostly the first 3-4 games that were started by Justin Fields. Between the 20s, really even between the 10s, they were okay. If you'll recall, a lot of their drives stalled really close to the goal line. And that's an area where, as Smith himself would tell you, they needed to work on it, but they weren't far. They were one person executing this or that away from getting those points. There was progress. Week after week after week, there was progress. Some of that, a lot of that actually, had to do with the way Fields was throwing the ball, particularly in the first 4 weeks before he started to lose some of his accuracy there. But even the offensive line had begun to show some signs of, something, anything. Then, you know what happened. Tomlin pulled the plug. And that's not to say that he wasn't right in the moment. He couldn't have been more right in the moment. Russell Wilson looked like he had just gotten drunk at the Fountain of Youth, making great reads all over the field, pulling out all of his best characteristics from his Seattle days. And it also helped that they got started with Russ against the 2 New Jersey teams, and wide receivers who hadn't been open at all through the first 6 games suddenly were standing wide open, surrounded by a sea of grass. But that's not even what I mean when I say pull the plug. There was an offense that was being set up for Fields. There was an offense, an overall offense that was increasingly becoming customized for Fields, for the things that he does well, for the reads that he makes, for the mobility that he has. And that's why, and I'm not exactly breaking news here or sharing some trade secret, that's why Tomlin was alone in wanting to make the move to Russ. Tomlin, this came right from his mouth. So Smith has to flip his own script. Within that, has to rework running schemes, blocking schemes, the rhythm that was getting established. And he has to do it, bang, like that in the middle of the season. I thought it was telling that Rooney, in his meeting with us a couple of weeks ago, when he was asked about Smith's performance, how Smith did, the first thing that came from his mouth, which is always telling in a live interview, I've learned, is what gets triggered when somebody brings up a certain subject. Well, Smith comes up and Rooney's response was, the job would have been a lot easier if the circumstances weren't that he'd have to deal with quarterback change. Now, throw on top of that the line really didn't get better. Throw on top of that as a lot of people inside the industry knew would happen in advance. Najee Harris was not a fit for the wide zone blocking scheme that Smith prefers, whereas Jaylen Warren was. Yet Harris was the feature back right to his final day with the Steelers. Why? Because that's the way the head coach prefers it. And I'm not suggesting that Smith was perfect. He wouldn't tell you that he was perfect. In fact, he's actually one of those types who'd sit there with you and tell you everything that he might have done wrong, which is also a strength and not a weakness. But that's also why I'm looking forward. There's not a whole lot in this scenario that I'm looking forward to being completely honest with you right now, especially with the same head coach and the same everything in general coming back. But I'm legitimately looking forward to an offense that has Fields at quarterback, that has another wide receiver or two up to and including Roman Wilson put into the mix, that has Jaylen Warren as at least a 1A in this offense, along with another dynamic young running back brought into the fold. I'm really looking forward to a full year of Troy Fautanu at tackle. Maybe Broderick Jones finally getting assigned to a side and finding his own stride there. Second year of Zach Frazier and Mason McCormick. I'm not sitting here making any kind of predictions or anything. I'm saying that I feel that the offense is in good hands. I feel that Smith could use a lot of support, a lot more support than what he got in the 2024 season. When we come back, J1Q. This segment of Daily Shot is brought to you by our good friends at Mike's Beer Bar. They're located on Federal Street, directly across from PNC Park. Mike has more than 500 beers on tap, including from more than 50 local breweries. Stop in and say hello. Tell Mike we sent you. Mike's Beer Bar. Today's J1Q might as well be an amalgam of about 1 million of them that were sent this way, most of them pretty angry, some of them at least semi-reasonable and ready and open to discuss the subject. But yeah, there was some nasty stuff too. People don't like being called idiotic or having their concept that they embrace being referred to as idiotic, which is what I actually did. I honestly, on this subject, I don't care. Now, I don't mean to be callous here. I appreciate every listener that I get. I go out of my way to respect opposing, dissenting, conflicting, even in some cases, non-fact-based viewpoints that get sent this way because I understand them. When it comes to the NFL officials being biased toward the Chiefs in some conspiratorial sense, I have no time for it. And it's not even a belief that, the NFL is all, angels and harps and innocence and whatever else. It's not. It's not. We're talking about the league that gave Ray Rice, 2 games? We're talking about the league that's had several significant issues that have reflected terribly on it. And for those of you who sent me examples of terrible calls, some of those with video and photo evidence to support them, I'm very much aware that there are terrible calls made in all sports, and football is one of them. But at the risk of repeating the lead subject yesterday, I was referring and am referring to one specific accusation that's been levied against this league commonly, and was, by the way, by a bunch of you in the responses. And that's that the NFL and the referees are somehow in cahoots to favor the Chiefs. And my counter to this isn't an opinion, and wasn't an opinion yesterday. It's that there are 138 officials employed by the NFL. Of those officials, of all those officials, no one gets more than 2 or 3 games that are played by the Chiefs. That's just the way it gets spread out. They don't stay with one team. There's a reason every week when you're following the Steelers, it's a different crew. So in order for the officials and or the league, but even if you just want to limit this crazy thought to the officials, you have to have, by definition, all 138 on board. 138. What's more, you have to have these 138 commit in blood to never speak a syllable of this to anyone for the remainder of their earthly lives. And because there is a rotation of officials year after year after year, just like there is in all sports, now your number 138 is getting into, 200, 250 for as long as Patrick Mahomes has been in the league. And every last one of them stays just completely mum, shares it with nobody, doesn't go and sell it for a story to some tabloid or nothing, zero. They're just immaculate at this. Can you see now why the concept is, and I'm going to reuse the term deliberately and pointedly, idiotic? It is idiotic. It's idiotic to think that there are 200 of these people systematically, in coordination, favoring the Chiefs. Once more, from the top of Mount Washington, that is idiotic, okay? Not one person who responded to yesterday's program, not one, and there were a ton of actual responses, could counter that singular point that was made, by the way, by the head of officiating in New Orleans this week. Not one person even tried to counter that. They would just come back with, "Oh, DK, you're really naive and you'll believe anything." Whatever. No. I'm giving you a fact. It's on you to counter it. Now, to the good points that were made, many of them in rebuttal. Yes, the NFL has an officiating problem. Yes, as I did point out with a couple of examples yesterday, officials can be prone by human nature to give the benefit of the doubt to truly great players. I even named names. I named Wayne Gretzky, Michael Jordan, great pitchers in baseball who have a reputation for throwing strikes. They're going to get the outside corner more than somebody who can't even command a routine four-seamer. But that's not what I'm going at here. What I'm going at is the insane extreme on this. The NFL wants the Chiefs to advance. The NFL wants Taylor Swift to be on camera. I don't even know that they show her more than 2 or 3 times a game. And somehow the officials are in on this. So do me a favor here. Don't respond to this unless you include the number 138 in your response and explain how any organization of any size or scope up to and including the most ruthless, vicious government in the world could get 138 people to go along with this and never, ever, ever, ever let on about it, even years after the fact. Otherwise, I'm just not interested. I'm not interested. I don't find this to be a compelling back and forth type debate. That's why I didn't even acknowledge the correspondence that came in this direction that was like, we'll agree to disagree. No, we're not going to agree to disagree on a fact. This is a fact that there are 138 of these refs. The burden's on you to explain how 138 of them all fall so magically in line, and not one of them has ever been disgruntled enough to go and tell the truth somewhere. Give me a break. I love you guys, but holy wow. We're going to come back tomorrow, and I promise you this isn't coming up again. And don't forget that this afternoon we have a double shot show that gets going at 5 p.m. Appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Never take it personally. We're also talking sports here, so never take it too seriously either. Let's do it again.